Hey guys, welcome back to Rider Review. My name is Mitch, and this is the Cyrusher Rumble, one of their newer, low-cost, fat tire e-bikes, and that is what we were talking about today. If you clicked on this review, that's probably why you're here, because it's probably in the title. Probably a picture of this thing over here, so you might be interested in some of the specs. And that's what we're going to do, is dive into this a little bit further. Now, this is not your typical review. There's a lot of guys out there that have done reviews where, they do range tests, they talk about all the technical specs, and we're not really going to do that because as a local bike shop owner, we see a lot of people come in, and at the end of the day, they're just looking to figure out, if a bike is right for them or not. And so at the Perfect Ride series, which is a series that we do here at Ride Review, that's kind of the whole slant of it, is we're really just talking about, is this bike perfect for you? So that's kind of what we're going to do with this one when we're talking about the Cyrusher Rumble. Now, the first thing we always talk about is price point. So the price point right here is $999 USD. That's right, this is a sub $1,000 e-bike, and when we get into some of the spec section, you're going to see why this is a pretty good value for the money. And honestly, I'm kind of confused as how they can do this for $1,000 because there's a lot of really cool things here. So the first one, and the most important thing, is going to be use case. How are you actually going to be using this bike? Now, we do have these fat tires, so obviously we can do a little bit more off-roading. We have front suspension, so we can tackle a little bit more terrain. Full set of fenders. We've got a rack here in the back. So this is kind of one of those bikes, not a full utility bike by any means, but it definitely could do a ton of things. Obviously, if we are rolling around on the concrete, like we got going over here, this is going to handle itself really well. And then if you do want to do a little bit of off-roading, the tires here are really going to support that. We're not going to do a lot of off-roading today. In fact, we're probably not going to do any because it has been raining for the last like three or 4 days. So I don't want to clean it up, but I have taken this bike off-road before this, and it does handle itself pretty well. As you would expect, a fat tire 20-inch e-bike to handle itself with front suspension. It handles itself, exactly how do you expect. So as far as use case goes, really you could do anything you want on this bike. I mean, it's got a rack, it's got the fenders, so you could use this to commute to and from work. We've got an option to add a front rack, front basket here, so you could carry even more stuff. So you could really build this thing out to carry quite a bit of cargo. Now, if you were going to build it out to, carry around a lot of cargo, what are we working with as far as the motor goes back here? This is a 750 watt motor. That's right, 750 watts. Again, we're still under the sub $1,000 mark. So that's pretty interesting. If you're loading this down with cargo or you're a heavier rider, you're gonna want that power here in the rear, and you do get that, which is nice. Then the next thing we'd look at is the battery. So up here, we've got this lockable, removable battery, and this thing is 18 amp hours, which again, for the price, pretty ridiculous that you can get that. I mean, most of the bikes that are in this category are, some of them are 12.8, some are 14.4, but we've got a full 18 amp hours here. So that should translate into, a realistic, 40 plus miles, pretty easy for most people. Now, if you're a lighter rider or the terrain that you're going to be on is not really, tumultuous, not a lot of ups and downs on it, then, you probably could push the 50, 55 miles pretty easy as far as the range goes. But yeah, for most folks, they probably get, around the 40 mile range. And again, 18 amp hour battery, pretty realistic. So you could do a lot with this bike. It's a pretty cool platform as far as building this off of. It's got all the power here for heavier riders or somebody who's loaded down with cargo. We've got enough battery here to give us a decent amount of range. And again, and I'm going to probably say this like 3 or 4 other times, it's only $999. So what are some of the other things we see here? We've got integrated lights. So we've got integrated front light here. We've got our integrated tail light here in the rear. Now, the tail light here does have brake integration. So as we pull those brake levers, it is going to flash, letting people know you're coming to a stop, whether the lights are on or not. So kind of a safety thing if you think about it. And I think that is, again, pretty interesting. We do have hydraulic brakes. Now, these are not Tektros. They are the DY island brakes. I like to call it the do-it-yourself, but that's actually DIY. But other people call them Disneyland brakes. They come on quite a few bikes. We see them a lot on the Frigos here in the store, like the Flash, even Even the X2s that we have here, those have those brakes on it. So not too bad as far as performance goes based on my riding with them so far, whether that's on this bike or the Frigos or some other ones we come across that have these brakes. Would like to see these be Tektros. If I'm gonna make some knocks here, I think Tektros are just they work really well and they're very common. So if you need to replace parts, it's gonna be very easy to get your hands on those because everybody else is using them. So there's something to think about when you're looking at an e-bike platform is replacing these parts. Brake levers do get broken. The bike falls over, smashing something, various other types of accidents. Not the most common thing that goes wrong on an e-bike, when you crash, but I do see it quite often. People bringing these and they're just broken off, or this is missing, or whatever when it comes to levers. So having something that is Tektro or something that's a little more popular is sort of a bonus, and it's really a small critique because the brakes do work pretty well. The other critique I would have here is we don't have locking grips. We've got these rubber ergonomic grips here, and I think they're fine, but you can get a little bit of rotation, as you can see with them. So that would be something I would probably swap out. 15-20 bucks on Amazon. You can find something that add a pop of color to it, has a locking mechanism on it, even has this ergonomic shape if that's something you're after. So I always tell people the 3 things to never make an e-bike purchasing decision on are the grips, the saddle, and the pedals. The pedals here I don't mind so much. A little bit stiff, not a whole lot of like movement to it. Obviously when you're pedaling you don't really notice any of that, but they're fine. They're decent, run-of-the-mill pedals, maybe even better than some of the stuff that comes, especially again at this price point. But again, a little bit of money, you can replace those out. Again, add a pop of color. I'm just gonna say again a lot, I suppose. And the saddle right here, not my favorite. It's a little bit thin, fairly cushiony as far as saddles go. So we do have a fair amount of cushion here. Some people who have test ridden it here at the store like it, but usually the thing is like I wish it was about this much wider and also had the cushion. So something you can replace pretty easily as far as saddles go. So grips, I swap those out. Saddle, I'd probably swap that out. And the pedals, I don't mind them unless I just wanted to match maybe what I'm doing with the grips, which I don't know if that's just a mountain bike thing, but we do that a lot, right? We'll get red grips, and so you got to get red pedals, and you got to get red stem caps for your tires down there. Lots of fun things you could do with it, but as it comes, that's what we're talking about. Now if you do get the grips, just one last thing, you have a half twist throttle here, so this is our actual throttle here. You're gonna need a half grip on this side, and they have plenty of sets. E-bikes have been common enough for quite a while that you can find some e-bike specific grips that are gonna have a half right on this side, and that's just something to pay attention to. If you get a full-size grip, it's not gonna fit here, it's not gonna work right, so just something to pay attention to. As far as gearing go, we do have a 7-speed Shimano SIS index shifter up here. Not my favorite shifter. Used to be something I didn't complain about, but after riding, especially if you're gonna be doing like some off-road stuff, and this kind of makes sense when we walk through it. So I've got my grip on this side, and then as soon as I want to go change or down a gear, I'm really taking most of my grip away to get this shifter to work. So you do have to switch your grip if you're gonna be doing stuff where you are on some trails or any sort of terrain that's again not just flat concrete. Having something like a trigger shifter would make a lot of sense. And a personal opinion on my side, just to let you know this is personal, I do like a thumb throttle. So I'd rather have a thumb throttle, which would have to go on this side if we swap this to a trigger shifter. Now these are things that should be easy to do. The plug for the throttle is, where is it at? Right here. So you should be able to plug in a thumb throttle if you want to go that route. And if you wanted to switch the shifter, you just need a 7-speed trigger shifter on that side and you'd be good to go. Now those are just upgrades as it comes. Not too bad, especially if you're going to be on the concrete or places where you don't need to have full grip all the time. So just something to consider. Well, that SIS, the Shimano shifter here is connected back here to our Shimano tourney. Now tourney is the lowest end Shimano, but the fact that it is Shimano is really nice. Again, going back to my comment about the brakes, having something like Shimano on this bike is pretty nice because this is a part that's been in production for a long time. It's not going anywhere. very easy to replace or get parts for if you need to do something like that. So really can't complain about seeing Shimano on here. Again, just note turning is the lowest end, but it's still Shimano, so we still like it. So, and guys, that is most of the main components. If we want to talk about the tires, a couple of things here. We don't have any sidewall reflective stripes, which would be nice to see for nighttime safety, especially considering this is a black bike. Visibility is something that kind of comes into question there. We do have the lights that we talked about, which is nice, but sidewall reflective stripes on here I think would be an excellent addition. These are Chaoyang 20x4, somewhat off-road ready tires. And the main reason we call them off-road is because we've got these side knobs here, and if we do some off-roading into the dirt, something like that, this is going to give us some control, which is nice. Up here we do have a folding stem, which at first, the first couple bikes that I reviewed that just had folding stems, I was pretty confused by it. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense. However, if you lower that seat down to, it'll be just about level with the highest point over here, you can slide this into the back of an SUV and not have to break it down any further, which is nice. So there is some benefits to it. It does make it a little bit easier to transport. The bike does weigh a fair amount. I'll have to double check. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering what the weight is, but it is pretty hefty. So this is probably something for most folks you're going to be putting on a bike rack, and you're probably going to need an e-bike rated bike rack for it. The stem's also adjustable, so if you want to bring the stem up, we do have quite a bit of height here. Where's our max? Right about there. So that's going to give us an additional 4.5 inches here. As far as if you wanted to ride this, you want to be a little bit more upright, you can bring those handlebars up, which is nice. And then again, if you're folding it, it's just going to go lower, so it's not going to actually add anything to our height here. But I like to ride them low, so we'll put it back there. The next thing to do is walk through the display. So go ahead and turn this on. Kaboom! It's a nice color display. Looks like frame rate is okay, so you should be able to see everything I'm seeing. We've got our battery up here, and show us our miles per hour down here. Our pedal assist level, which we're going to change with the keypad over here. So it's going to go up to 5. Let me use the minus to go back down into 0 if we want to. And it's going to show us our trip down there. If we press the I button over here, which we can assume stands for information, it shows our odometer, our max speed, average speed, and our trip distance here. And then obviously this is showing us nothing because we're not moving, but if we pop this up over here and pull this guy, and it's going to show us how fast we're going on this side. To turn the lights on, we're just going to press this light button, and then it actually dims the display, which is nice. There's a little bit of an indicator here, you can see it. It's kind of bright out here for being as cloudy as it is. And then up here in the front, we've got our light. Nothing terribly bright. It's decent enough, I think, for most running. If you've got some ancillary lights like, light posts. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word light posts. But yeah, so if you got something else, we don't have any light posts over here, but there's lights along these buildings here. If those are on, you've got this on, does a really good job as far as being able to go 20-ish miles per hour. I feel okay with. If you're going to be somewhere and it was completely black and this is your only form of light, might look at getting something you can mount up here a little bit higher, closer to 1,000 lumens, because you really do, as you go faster, you need a brighter light to be able to have the throw that you need in order to continue to ride safely. And then here in the rear, our taillight is on, and then even when this is on, I can show you here, when we pull this, it gets a little brighter, and turn it off. As we pull this, it's going to light up. There you go, I can see it. So I'm pulling the brake, and you see we've got the braking integration here. So again, for $1,000, coming with the rack, coming with the fenders, an 18 amp hour battery, 750 watt motor, hydraulic brakes, 7 speeds, it is pretty interesting. Cyrusher's been around for 8-9 years at this point. Usually most of their bikes are the 26x4 inches. They do a lot of fat tire, full suspension type bikes. So for them to kind of go after this price point bike, I thought was a really interesting move. And I think they pulled it off in a really really nice way. So that is a little bit about the bike. The next thing I think for us is to take it out, do a little riding on it, see how she handles when, you know, when you're riding it. So let's get to it.
What's up everybody, Tyson here from Ride Review. I want to take a quick moment to tell you about MicroMobility America. This is a micromobility focused conference that is happening in Southern California on November 14th and 15th this year. Now we are pulling out all the stops and trying to get a lot more dealers and you know, if you're a store owner or maybe a distributor for electric vehicles, I mean, you know, bikes, scooters, skateboards, EUCs, you know, micro cars, anything like that. We want to get you involved at this event. We're going to have representatives from hundreds of manufacturers there. Most of these representatives are going to be, you know, C-level, founders, engineers. So if there's brands that you're interested in, you can, you know, skip the email chains and just go, you know, straight to the people who actually make the decisions and can really tell you what these products are about and why they made them this way. Also at this event, you can expect, you know, we're going to have networking mixers, we're going to have after parties, we're going to have the dealer awards, we're going to have a Shark Tank style competition where manufacturers can bring in some of their, you know, new and outlandish product ideas, and then the dealers will get a chance to, you know, vet those and rank those, you know, see if they're going to be good for the market or not. If you guys are interested, please check out the description of the video. You're going to find a link where you can learn more and get registered. All right, back to the video.
All right guys, we're out here at Power On E-Bikes for the test ride on the Rumble from Cyrusher. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Let's see what this ride experience is like. Boom, our pedal assist level 1. Let's go ahead and put it on pedal assist level, I was gonna say 0, but let's do 1. And then, I wanna see how these gears came out of the box, but I'm gonna put it back to 0. Just gonna get going. Do a little downshift and lots of torque right at the gate here. So, like I said, let's put it back to 0. And we're just pounding this like a regular bike. First gear is pretty nice. Second gear. Now, one of the things I do like is it does show your speed even when we are in pedal assist level 0. Third gear, fourth gear. Cruising through the gears. It's all pretty smooth, pretty easy. Pretty easy to pedal this bad boy. But this is an electric bike, so let's go ahead and put it in pedal assist level 1. And a little assistance from the motor. Gets up to about 12. 2. That takes us up to about 15. 3. I was gonna take us to 20 plus right there. We were picking up some speed. Oh, I don't want to go in the grass. It's raining. All right, this is pedal assist level 4. And again, 750 watt motor here and a 20-inch wheel, so we are getting a lot of torque here. Takes up to about 22 miles an hour, and pedal assist level 5. And that should take us up to about 28 or so. Now, as far as ghost pedaling goes, we do get some ghost pedaling, but we're going pretty quick, about that 24 miles an hour. Definitely has a little bit more in it. But as far as the gearing with those 7 gears, it's got some good takeoff to it. Let's go ahead and try the throttle here. Oh yeah. At 25, we still got some. And 27 here. Also easy U20. We're gonna run a runway a little bit here, but this thing will go. And again, like I said, those hydraulic brakes, they work pretty well. I'm going to really test it. I'm going to have to do it this way. Let's go ahead and do a little rear brake only test here. Woo! Jeez Louise. Oh yeah, this is a skidder right here. That is a lot of fun. I like that. So like I said, they're not Tektros, but they work really well, which is, you know, it's always nice to see. Now, with cadence bikes, they are designed in such a way that there is a little bit of delay between when the motor comes on and when the motor comes off, right? And it has to be designed that way. With the torque sensors, are a little bit more sensitive to starting and stop, does that a little bit quicker. So let's go ahead and test to see, you know, kind of what this is from a start-stop perspective. So we're gonna go ahead and start, motor kicks in. Pretty reasonable delay there, and then we'll go ahead and stop pedaling, see when that motor cuts out. So we'll go stop, stop. Pretty quick, not too bad. It doesn't feel like some of the cadence bikes when you are on them and you go stop. Yeah, that's not too bad. Some of the cadence bikes, as I was saying before I cut myself off there, they have, you know, almost a 2.5 second delay. And so when you get into that territory, it becomes a little, I mean, you can get used to it, but for most people, especially if they're not used to riding on a cadence bike, can get, you know, dangerous. Just because they, you know, they stop and the motor's gonna kick in for that much longer. I feel like they kind of got this one dialed. Starts fairly smooth, and the stop is actually pretty nice. So, I mean, again, we'll go stop, stop. So that's pretty good as far as the cadence goes. Now again, with the torque sensors, they're actually sensing how hard we're pressing down, so they can tune that a little bit better, a little bit quicker, if you will. And then with the cadence, there's just magnets in there. So as the magnets are rotating, as we're rotating the pedals, then it's just gonna give us that power. So even if we're not, like, I'm not putting any mechanical pressure into it, see how slowly I'm going here, but we're in pedal assist level 5, so it's gonna take us up to 28 miles per hour right here. Even though, again, I'm not putting that much, I'm basically putting, you know, no effort into pedaling, but I'm still able to get those speeds. Some people, they want, you know, a little bit more of a traditional bike feel, which is what a torque sensor gives you. And with the cadence, you don't have to put in a lot of effort to get the speeds out of it, which some people want. You know, it's personal preference. There are brands out there, like Traxxas is a good example, where with the click of a button, you can switch back and forth between torque and cadence, which I think is kind of interesting for those people that, you know, like, you know, they want to go ride a bike and they want it to feel pretty good, but they're out there, they're tired, it's hot, whatever. They can put on cadence and just, they can still pedal, keep the, you know, the rotation going, but they don't have to be putting in the effort like they would if they, you know, didn't have the option to switch into cadence. So that's kind of nice. Some people like cadence though, you know, and for a lot of people on this bike, they're probably looking to use this bad boy, this little half twist throttle, most of the time. You know, my dad, you know, he hears it from my mom sometimes. She's like, you know, why aren't you pedaling your bike? And he's like, it's got throttle on it. Why would I pedal? And so I think that is a lot of people's mindsets. And obviously, you know, I'm doing a lot of pedaling right now, but that's only because throttle's on this side, I'm holding the camera. But this is probably something, if I was gonna do a lot of riding on it, I'd probably be using the throttle a lot too. You know, it's, I mean, I can get a good pedal geometry. You can see I got a good full extension here, and the handlebars are still down, so if I want something that's a little bit more upright, and that's easy to do, you can loosen this bad boy up, bring it up here, boom, we bring it up, and now my arm's a little bit more straight. So before it was down about like this, and now, you know, they're up here. It says nice, comfortable cruising position, and I can, you know, do that on the fly. So you do have the ability to get good pedal geometry here, which is nice. But if you want to keep everything nice and low and just cruise around the throttle, you can do that as well. So like I mentioned, this is a platform that really has a lot going for it. It's got, you know, an 18 amp hour battery for less than $1,000, which honestly is pretty crazy. 750 watt motor, and, you know, enough torque. It's got a 20-inch wheel, so it has a little bit more mechanical advantage when it comes to torque versus, you know, a 26, 27.5, you know, any of the larger in diameter tire sizes. So it does feel torquey, it feels like it's got a lot of power, and then the options of, you know, throwing something up on the rack back here or putting on that front basket, it really does open this platform up to quite quite a lot of options of creativity. So if you are, thinking about getting this bike, really just a couple of upgrades, right? Throw on some locking grips, getting a wider saddle. There's really not much else to complain about other than, some of the stuff I mentioned with the brakes, sidewall reflective stripes on the tires, which also you could upgrade to. It's a pretty sweet platform, and we don't do a lot of opinions on this channel, but when you find something for $1,000 that performs like this and has some of these features to it, it's hard not to give a little bit of an opinion to it. So I appreciate you guys riding along with me, and we'll catch you on the next one.